Well, look who is making a book video after all these years. How many years has it been? It's been at least 2 years. I'm pretty sure the last video that was about books that I made was for Halloween books, which was not last Halloween, and I'm not sure that it was the Halloween before that either, so it might have been 2 years ago actually. Maybe 3. Praise Jesus, by the way, because yeah, honestly, especially today, because God is good to me. It is allergy season here. Every time I think I'm being punished for something sinful in my life, it always turns out to be something nice, actually. It is pollen season here. It is spring. My entire body hates me. I don't know what it is, what's different about this spring, but the allergy season is hitting significantly hard this year. I feel like I say that all the time, though, every year. It is quite bad, quite not good. It's really not good. Do you agree, Horsey? Horsey agrees. Yes, I do still sleep with stuffed animals. Shut up. But it's hit me, like, different. If it hasn't hit me harder, it's hit me different. I have inhaled so much pollen that I might have become Polynese. It is windy today. And for some reason this year, it is making my skin, slightly TMI, but my skin is not liking the effects of the thing. I've had some skin irritation issues that have led me to decide that soaking in the bath regularly is probably a good idea for me. With some Epsom salt and soap bubbles. Very nice, actually, but a little bit boring. So I started reading in the tub again. So I don't take baths very often, but when I do, I bring a book. A nice hardback book. But I read Murder on the Orient Express, which was great. I might make a video about that one as well. I read Legacy of a Pack Rat. That was really good. But I got kind of tired of like physical reading, so I just hooked up my speaker to my phone and started playing audiobooks while I was in the bath, which is a little bit tricky because you can't hear them when the water is running. So I have to like put my phone in a towel, put it by the bath, fill the bathtub, and then once it's done, then dry my hands on the towel without getting the phone wet and hitting the play button. It's quite a system, but it's been incredibly nice. This is why I think it's a good thing. I've quite rediscovered my joy of liking listening to audiobooks in a nice bubble bath. I used to do that as a kid, actually, when I was little. I would just play in the bubble bath, and we had one of those boombox speakers with a CD of Magic Treehouse audiobooks, and my parents would just play those while I was in the bath. And that was probably quite foundational to me becoming a big reader, a medium reader, perhaps you could say. A bigger reader than the vast majority of humans on the planet these days. I would love to read Dracula. I'm like a quarter way through Dracula. This is irrelevant, but I'm just looking at it. I'd like to read that in the bath, but I might have a really nice edition of it, and I don't want to take it near the bathtub, and I don't want to get a worse edition because I have that nice edition and I don't want to audiobook it. And usually I read hardback books usually only at nighttime right before bed, and I don't want to read Dracula right before bed, so it's sitting kind of not getting read, but it's really good. But that's irrelevant actually, because we're talking about Everything on Waffle, which is one of the audiobooks that I have listened to recently. I read that one, a nice 3-hour audiobook. If you don't want spoilers for either of these books, then you shouldn't watch this, because I'm just going to talk about them freely. And then after I finished it, the Audible app was like, hey, you know it has a sequel? And I was like, download, and immediately listened to that one too. A Year in Coal Harbor, which was a kind of boring title. They should have titled it something else. They should have titled it, what did they call the cookbook in that actual book? They should have called it just chuck some butter on it and call it a day, or whatever they called it in the book. Or they could have called it Not Everything with Mini Marshmallows. That could have also been a good title. A Year in Coal Harbor, where'd you get that title? I feel like the whole recipes gimmick of the book lost its charm a lot in the second book. I really enjoyed it in the first book. I liked how the first book, there was only one recipe per chapter. It felt more important, and I liked how she said recipe to follow. I enjoyed that. I missed that in the second book, and it felt more scattered. It was a lot cleaner in the first book. I liked both books. I gave them both 3 stars, only 3 stars, which is what I usually give for an average book. I can't really explain my rating system because I really enjoyed these. It's not very often that I immediately pick up a sequel. Usually I give it some time before I immediately pick up a sequel, so that says something about it. But I only gave them both 3 stars because I felt like they deserved 3 stars. Actually, I almost gave the second book 2 stars. But then, like, the last hour of it or so was really good, I thought. It could have been really bad. I've already warned about spoilers, right? So, like, you've been warned, so don't yell at me. I'm too sensitive, I can't take it. Sad boy. I like both of them. They were both enjoyable. You know what I really liked about them? I liked them because they inspired me to play The Sims. I enjoy books that, like, have overarching what happens in the town. Like, the last, like, 10 minutes of the second book was, like, we started randomly talking about, like, these side characters that had very little to do with the plot, opening a salon and getting married. And I really enjoyed that. I feel like it might be an objectively bad thing, but I really enjoyed it because things like that it's a little bit in sprinkling in some inspiration of stuff I can do in The Sims. Because, you know, The Sims, you can only do so much things in The Sims, even if they were doing their very best to add as much as possible, which they're not. But even if they were, they can only add, like, so much to a life simulator to make it simulate life. So I enjoy having things that can inspire me to do things outside of the actual game mechanics. And these 2 books were really good books for that. The only other thing I have like that is Welcome to Night Vale, the podcast, which is not family friendly, by the way, in case you're wondering, but that really inspires some supernatural gameplay in my Sims worlds. And this one was really nice, a little bit of inspiration for, like, non-supernatural gameplay. I don't have any particular plans on adding it to my Sim series, though, so don't, like, be looking out for that. I just enjoy, like, having some inspiration on the back burner. People talk about creative wells, which is more romantic than what I think. I think of, like, a creative warehouse, where, like, the more that you store in there, the more supplies you can go in there and grab from. Which is kind of the same idea of a creative well. It's not as romantic sounding, but makes more sense to me. The more you put in your head, the more you can pull out of your head, you know? And people do say that with, like, refilling the creative well, but, like, who refills wells? That's dumb. Maybe that's actually a thing. I've never worked with wells, except well thens when someone says something sassy. Well then, fine. I liked both books for different reasons. I liked the first one. I thought it was more put together, and structurally as a story, it was very nicer. Like, I thought the recipes, I thought the whole recipes gimmick was done a lot better in that one. And I thought that just in general, it was a lot more structured. And then the second one was more so, it was less of a structured story, and it was more like just opening up the world and letting us, journey with characters a little bit, which is exactly what I wanted. When the first one ended, I was like, this was not quite enough time with these characters. I just wish we could spend more time with them. I felt like they had some weird connections, like some weird differences, like the whole Lost at Sea thing from the first book. In the second book, people didn't act toward that the way that I thought they would. It didn't seem natural to me. Like, why would you care so much about your appearance to people after being stranded on an island and almost dying? Like, you just didn't act the way that I thought you would act, and I thought Primrose didn't really act the way someone might act if they had gone through what she'd been through. It's just something about the whole situation of, like, little ways that people acted felt off. By the way, I'm not planning on editing this video too harshly. This is intended to be more of just like a casual chatty video that's also kind of half-heartedly a book discussion review thing, kind of just documenting my experience with it. But you know, who knows, because I tell myself so a lot of times that I'm not going to edit a video too harshly, and then I can't help myself. Once I'm actually in there, you cut out the silence, and then, like, if that's not quite enough because you want to restructure some of the ways I said things. So I cut out some of my rambling, and I cut out some of the rearrange these two sentences, and then I start adding zooms. And who knows, if there's been a lot of zooming ins in this video, then you know that I got carried away with the editing. And if there isn't, then good for me for actually doing what I told myself I would do. I'm not quite sure 100% if I ship Jack and Miss Bowser. Yes, well, yes, but actually no. You know what, yes, I do think so. Their personalities clash in a very good way, I think. I think they're going to have some serious troubles, but their personalities clash in a very romantic way. That's at least enjoyable from an outside experience. I'm not sure if it will be enjoyable in their actual marriage. It's also kind of weird. Individually, they're not the kind of characters that you can picture in a relationship. You know what I liked that both of these books did in a pretty cool way that I liked? I enjoyed, like, we're looking at the world through Primrose, who's a child, eyes, right? But you can tell kind of things that are happening in the adult world that she doesn't get, but you get because you can see it. Like Jack and Miss Bowser courting each other and she didn't get the whole game they were playing, but it was happening. And the first book did some of that too. I can't remember the exact example that I was thinking of. I might say I liked the second book better in general, because the first book kind of started to lose me a little bit towards the end. Like, I was vibing and buying the whole thing until she lost her second digit, until she lost a finger. Like, when she got hit by a truck and lost a toe, that was pretty insane in general. That was a pretty curveball, but when it happened a second time, that's when it kind of started to lose me. And then it was a whirlwind from there. She gets sent to foster parents, and then the foster parents move back to her hometown, and then their house burns down, and it was just like, what is happening, actually? It was a little bit disappointing, actually, because it kind of broke up my suspension of disbelief and my investment. It kind of messed that up a little bit, which meant, like, by the time that the parents showed back up, I just wasn't that emotionally invested in it anymore. I was emotionally invested enough to immediately read the second book. I wasn't emotionally invested enough to be too overly excited about her parents coming back. I was wondering about that. Both of these books had, like, situations happening that could have gone very, very badly. Like Ked disappearing and the parents being lost at sea. It all turned out very nicely, except his dog dying. 2 dead dogs. The first book, the second book, I was like, what on earth? What is, like, you're gonna start off your book by talking about a dog getting cancer? And they went on and on about it, too. Like, what are you doing? I didn't like the mom in the second book. Yeah, I didn't like the Primrose's parents in the second book. They had so much romantic energy built up around them. Not, like, romantic as in, like, kissy lips, Valentine's Day things, but, like, larger than life kind of romantic, you know? And they had so much of that built up around them in the first book that and then they kind of were very basic in the second book. They turned out to be borderline stereotypes. I mean, what did they even do, honestly? Like, except for the mom being very into trying to set up her brother and trying to do the thing. I would have enjoyed more seeing her and her brother clashing a little bit. More interactions between them, and honestly, the dad just didn't do anything, really. Yeah, what else is there to say? I felt bad for the best friend in that second book. She was kind of put there randomly. Kind of like the author decided to just slip her in there, despite the fact that it wasn't mentioned in the first book. I don't remember her name. I also couldn't picture Uncle Jack's gym. I didn't understand the description of how that worked. Like, was it a gym connected to the house, or was it like a gym that was like a business? I didn't know. Is it a private gym? Why was it directly next to the house then? I couldn't picture that. That was weird. Also, the mean girl. We didn't get to see any of the mean girl after the first encounter with girl, which I kind of actually enjoyed. She wasn't a very exciting mean girl. She was just a boring mean girl. Kind of wish we'd seen more of the sheriff. He seemed like a cool dude. I enjoyed her interaction with him in the first book. The whole Ked's dad situation felt very dark for a middle grade book, but I was there for it. I enjoyed that. My battery is about to die, so this might end editing time because I don't know if I am invested enough into this video to actually go downstairs and get the other battery. So I might just, if it just cuts out, I might just take it as it is. I need to get a physical copy of these books. If I ever see them like in the thrift store or something, I'm definitely getting them. I don't know if I'm going to go out of my way to order them. I like to own physical copies of the books that I've read. I just enjoy having the physical catalog, you know? I like to be able to look at my shelf and see everything that I've read. I don't like having, like, using Goodreads as my catalog only. I like having a physical catalog. You know why I think I rated them 3 stars is because of the very contemporary aspect of them where, like, they would go on randomly talking about life. Very atheistic of you, really. They're kind of just random life lessons, gray morals, kind of vague ramblings, really, about whales and seals working together and they don't work together, and justice existing, not existing, just like random musings, really. I can't say that I don't enjoy them, but I can say that I don't agree with them most of the time, and I don't really even know how to disagree with them a lot of the time, because like they're usually just vague ramblings about nothing. Just throw in some words like justice, you do or don't believe in it, and then it all sounds very deep. It just all kind of sounds like someone that doesn't have anything to believe in trying to convince themselves in something to believe in. Miracles happen. If you don't believe in God, how do you believe in miracles? And what's the point of miracles if there's not justice? You know, 2 dogs dead. 2 dogs died in the second book. That is so random. It didn't upset me as much as I would have thought. I don't usually approve of doggos going, but it's also usually over the top and done really crazy. Or maybe I'm just not as emotionally sensitive as I was when I was 10, watching Lassie. Or not Lassie. I actually don't remember watching Lassie, as a matter of fact, but watching Marley and Me. That movie, why would you end it that way? Why? Despised that movie. I also despise Up, but that is irrelevant. Actually, what I really despise is the Toy Story movies, particularly Toy Story 3. That was trauma. I spent way too much of my life being concerned about hurting the feelings of inanimate objects. That is so much stress that I didn't have to go through. Also, as someone who was very much struggling with transitioning from a kid to a grown-up, did not appreciate Toy Story 3 acting like you're a loser jerk if you're not willing to let go of all your childhood mementos to the snotty kid next door the second you turn 18. Why, Pixar, would you do this to me? That is not what I needed to hear at that time. Thank you for traumatizing me. Thanks. There is a right and a wrong way to make the trope of toys secretly being alive well done. Toys Go Out, I think, was a good one. Another book I read that had a similar thing was The Doll People. That was another audiobook I listened to in the bath. Those were both toy books, toy being secretly alive books that I thought did it a lot better. Even Winnie the Pooh. Maybe Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh's kind of a different one, actually. Winnie the Pooh is like, it's not really toys being alive. It's like they're not secretly alive. They just are alive and have their own universe. Winnie the Pooh is actually a very interesting universe. I'm off track substantially, but it's a very interesting universe. Like, is the 100 Acre Wood like a portal fantasy kind of situation happening? I don't know. Like, the Christopher Robin movie made it look like a portal fantasy kind of thing, and I enjoyed that, actually. That was a very forgettable movie. Better than being a tragic dump of a movie, honestly. I enjoyed that it wasn't completely one-sided about, and we're back to Waffles, by the way. I enjoyed that the second book, they didn't completely demonize the loggers. Like, the loggers needed jobs, and the protesters, some of them were just there to be protesters. They just liked having fun protesting, not just, we're gonna demonize this person. I actually was a little bit disappointed at the way they did Miss Honeycutt. And no, actually, they didn't completely demonize her. Like, they've decided she was definitely mean. Like, I don't know how I feel about the way Miss Honeycutt was portrayed, actually. What I did really like is I think both of these books had really nice solutions, despite my disinterest in the book by the time the parents showed up. I enjoyed that they showed up with everyone watching. And then in the second book, I really liked how the whole park situation and the mountain situation and wanting to have the B&B situation all came together. It's nice structure. Solid structure, actually. Very good. I will probably read more books by this author, maybe. She did have other books. There was one series that I saw on Goodreads that, like, had a hot air balloon on it, and it sparked my interest in me at first. At first it did, but after reading about it, I forget what it was, but there was something in the description that made me change my mind about reading that. And then there was like some bunny books that I might read.